For more than 10 years, there's been peace. Well, now there's been an eruption!
I thought this was a way to make a gangster film with a relevance to what was going on at that time. And it's still relevant, it seems to me.
It has this amazing, visceral energy that will carry it through the next 25 years. I think it is destined to be a true classic in that sense.
It was my first movie, and I was just really proud to be part of it. It was an amazing ensemble piece of work by everybody.
There was a lot of static electricity coming actually from the set. There was that kind of feeling of it being extraordinary.
It was a very enjoyable film to work on it. And I felt like sort of, you know, oh, yeah, this is great, you know what I mean? Really creating here at centre.
I was a producer in television drama, worked at ITC, which is Lord Grade's company. Barry Keefe was working with me on a play that I'd had him adapt. I was aware of his writing anyway, and I got together with him and said, look, I'd like you to do something, whatever you want. And then this script arrived called The Paddy Factor, and that was the beginning of The Long Good Friday.
Well, the idea was presented to me in the form of a script that was given to me by a friend of mine, Barry Hanson, who had worked with Barry Keefe, the writer. They had thought of doing a British gangster movie. And he knew I loved gangster movies. We all loved the early Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney type movies. So he gave me this early script, one of the first of the many rewrites we actually eventually did. And I just thought the central idea was great. This capitalist thug going into big business and coming up against a politically oriented terrorist organisation. But there were certain things in that script which I thought could be changed, and we worked on those.
We were working in Carnaby Street. That was an exciting kind of situation because there was a lot of give and take and rows with everybody. We'd do our orders for coffee and Barry Keefe would say, mine includes 3 large brandies if I have to meet John McKenzie after it.
I may say that when Barry Hanson gave me the script, he said, I really think Bob should do it. And we instantly agreed. Bob, in my mind, was the only guy who could play it.
Zulu Dawn. He'd just come back from Zulu Dawn. We sent it to him and they said, oh, he's in hospital.
Yeah, they sort of came in and pitched it to me. And they said, we got this gangster film. I said, yeah, I've got a worm. You know what I mean? He said, no, it's going to gangster. No, I've got a worm. I was made an honorary chief by the Zulus. And the thing is, they make you eat a piece of raw beef that they just killed. And I got a tapeworm. And it was 40 foot long, this thing, and they couldn't kill it.
This tapeworm had just been taken out. We didn't see the tapeworm, but he seemed to be fit enough to do another picture anyway.
So I read the script, and it was wonderful. Oh, yeah, this is great. And I was, I was on.
I wanted Helen Mirren to do this particular part because it required somebody very, very strong, a very good actress.
The script was sent to my agent, and I thought it was really special, very exciting. It was a wonderful piece of writing by Barry Keefe, and the only trouble was I thought the woman's role that I was being offered kind of sucked, you know.
The girl in it was a sort of gangster's moll.
She was a pea-brain tart.
So we had, you know, a lot of discussions about it. I wanted to make her intelligent. I wanted her to be a part of the story. And I agreed to do the film because Barry said he would address those issues.
I thought I couldn't have had a better kind of poker hand. Everybody thought, let's make the best possible film we can.
How Long Good Friday was made for Black Lion, an adjunct of the great organisation. And it was a very happy film to make.
9 weeks, I think it was. Made on quite a low budget. And nearly all the film was shot on location. Making a film should very much be teamwork between the director and the cameraman. I'd known John for a long time, and we both trusted each other's judgment on various things. And I liked John so much, I thought he was a terrific director. I thought if anyone could make something out of this, he could.
I always wanted this film to be, quite a film of some scale. There was originally going to be a totally different opening to this film, going over the Italian Apennines and swooping down on a van, and you see a hold-up and money being taken from this van, being taken by some Italian-looking guys. And then you follow the progress of this money until it arrives in London. I wanted to hint that it was illegal money coming from illegal organisations, terrorist organisations mainly, and being passed to the IRA. And that opening went on for some considerable time.
But it didn't work. It seemed out of kilter with the whole thing.
My agent said to me, I think the opening's a bit complicated. I said, well, it's meant to be complicated. What's wrong with that? He said, well, will the audience hang on that long? Maybe it was going to be too complex. We'll never know, because I eventually changed it. A slightly simpler sort of setup. It starts in a little cottage in the country, awaiting the money, and then you see the money en route, coming down the steps of a boat. And the guy delving into it and all that. And then you follow the progress of this money. You're watching the trail of this money and wondering where it's going until it's passed to the IRA. You're not letting the audience know, but trying to hold them. And then the IRA cottage being raided. It was still quite complicated.
All those little clips at the beginning of the film, all those little elements, look like almost a completely separate drama in its own right.
There are all sorts of things happening, like the funeral, and there's something going on with Jeff and the town councillor.
Highly confidential. I'll need him tomorrow, Jeff.
The lady spitting at Jeff.
And you think,
Wait a minute.
where are we, what's going on?
I wanted to test the audience. I wanted them to strain to know what is all this about. And then gradually reveal it piece by piece. You always remember Harold Shan's entrance, having just got off Concorde and all that. The pompousness of the guy as he strides through Heathrow Airport, owning it. Bob was, for me, crucial to the part, and he gave me all the nuances of the character that I really wanted.
I suppose it was me, really.
Good old George.
The character was me.
Everything all right when I was away?
Apart from being a gangster,
The new casino's gone through.
you know, sort of quite emotional, sort of, not always going the straight route. Yeah, he's climbing up the tree of his profession. You know, I didn't have to work hard at it. That was who I was.
Again, I agreed to do the film because Barry said he would make my particular role much more interesting.
I hate being late for church.
And as often happens,
Have a nice Easter.
other things were more important at the time.
God rot your soul.
Really, none of my questions had been addressed. So then I was in a very awkward position because I'd kind of signed up for something on the understanding that this would be done, and it hadn't been done. So basically, the role got developed while we shot.
Oh, Christ, Harold, she's always worse when she's going to church.
We always felt that Harold Sham was a bit more intelligent, had a bit more taste than to just want some bird to screw every now and again, you know what I mean? He wanted a life partner,
Cheers.
and that's who Helen was.
Have you organised everything?
Yeah, it's coming along.
You don't get Helen, someone as intelligent as Helen, who's obviously intelligent, to play a bimbo.
Charlie should be landing about now.
And so Barry rewrote the role.
Yeah. Maybe we should have gone to the airport to meet him.
She was classy and she was educated, and that was her contribution to his world.
All played it up, right? You went to school with Princess Anne, played hockey with her, all that.
There's lacrosse at Benetton. Hockey's frightfully vulgar.
These slightly posh girls, they always rather like to slum it, you know. They like to walk on the wild side, some of them.
The Yanks love snobbery. They really feel they've arrived in England if the upper classes treat them like shit.
He enjoyed the fact that he had captured this high-class bird.
We better check how the chef's progressing.
She gave him class. And, you know, made him look good in that sense.
Someone said to me once, well, why would someone like Victoria want him, you know? Well, I said, it's obvious, isn't it?
He broke 2 of them, demonstrating their exquisite delicacy.
It was power.
He doesn't know his own strength.
Power, they say, is a big aphrodisiac. And you could see how she would be very attracted to someone of his immense internal power. I had a great casting lady in this called Simone Reynolds. I said, I want this IRA guy to make a sort of impact. And Simone Reynolds came up with the name of this young actor called Pierce Brosnan. And I said, well, who's he? You know, who's Pierce Brosnan?
This was my first film. My agent called me, said, I've got you 2 days, possibly 3 days work on a film called The Long Good Friday. Report to work next Tuesday, Morden swimming baths. I hadn't a clue what I was supposed to do. I hadn't read the script. They didn't send me the script. There was no dialogue. I didn't have to read for this part. John said, you play an IRA hitman. Got no lines, but you kill people. I said, I'm in. Great. And he said, this guy's gay, and you're picking him up, and you're gonna kill him. That was my job. Kill him. And the rest was for whatever I wanted to make it.
All right.
I picked the guy up, and then there's like, you know, give him the old knifey. I got nothing to say, really, except that was my day at work at Morden Baths, and we did a good job killing Paul. I wish all parts were like this, actually.
I wanted to do a sort of upbeat view of London, very modern and very glitzy, as reflected the life that Harold was leading.
Hello, mate. You all right? Hello, Harold. Having a good time? Enjoy yourselves. Have a good try.
We only had the boat for a short period of time, mostly because the guy who owned it wanted a humongous amount of money to rent it off him.
It was a slightly crappy boat, but it was the best we could get and the best we could afford, so that was redecorated.
Barky, you're not drinking.
Harold, you know I only drink when I'm on duty.
John thought he needed things like a bar and things like that, which were going to play an important part in the storyline.
Champagne, my son.
Thanks very much.
Shooting on any small space is obviously difficult.
Here's to real friends.
So I was very much at the mercy of the weather and the small space.
What's the latest on the American?
We'll just pump them full of information, everything we've got, you know.
I said we need an American kind of thing to it.
I think you're going to like Charlie.
It was feasible that they'd need money from everywhere in order to do what is now Canary Wharf casinos.
Harold, he's here.
Well, you two pipe them aboard and I'll be out, right?
To cast that part, Charlie, was really the most difficult of all. I said, this guy's got to be authentic. You've got to really feel that he is a gangster. And Barry Hanson came up with this idea for an American actor called Anthony Franciosa. So they got him and he came over, and Barry met him at the airport. He said, oh, and by the way, here's the new script. And Tony Franciosa said, a new script? What do you mean, the new script?
He flew from Los Angeles, and then when he saw the rewrites, he flew straight back.
So we had to postpone and think, who do we get? And how quickly can we get them? And then someone came up with the Constantine idea. And I said, oh, God, yeah, he's an American who went to live in France. I'd seen him in several European films. He's got a leathery-looking, snake-like face. Fantastic. And he brings all the baggage with him anyway. So we got him.
I can't believe you're here. Yeah. The kid from New Jersey, eh?
Boy from Stepney.
He did a lot of films in French, but he didn't really, did he? He just did that and then put the voice in later.
Charlie, have some champagne.
You should be the captain of this boat. Great timing.
I had to say, well, you got to speak English with an American accent. You got to do that, and I'm not going to dub it later. So it was a whole new technique for him.
To the future.
To the future here.
And he worked very hard at it, and he was just the very presence of him was great.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Harold saw himself as a freewheeling capitalist developer.
I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman.
But a patriot to the nth degree.
And I'm also a Londoner.
Yeah, he's very English, very British.
And today is a day of great historical significance for London.
Nothing like good old Britain.
Our country's not an island anymore. We're a leading European state.
And now that we're free of socialism, we'll show the world.
And I believe that this is the decade in which London will become Europe's capital.
Oh, he was total Thatcher-era. You know, if you can make it pay, you can make it work.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is why you are all here today.
We're going to build up the docks, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You know, we're going into partnership with the Americans.
And why Charlie and Tony are here today. Our American friends.
That was complete Thatcherism.
Hands across the ocean.
It was slightly ironic and almost the unacceptable face of capitalism.
Obviously, this guy had this empire. But the top is the mafia, as far as he's concerned.
This is the guy who's made it big time.
Get a good sleep, Charlie. We got a tight schedule.
This isn't a horse race. Don't rush me, Harold.
And the business like him running around like a puppy dog saying Charlie this and Charlie that.
I want you to meet my property lawyers, the best. And then there's someone you have got to meet.
Harold, I said don't rush me.
And you've got to have all that.
I'll get everything covered that I have to cover, but in my own time.
Come on, Harold. Let's leave Charlie alone for a while.
So you got all facets of a quite complicated character, which I liked a lot.
The way the story unfolds is that the leading character, Harold Shand, doesn't know what's happening to him. So the way we decided to shoot the film was that you didn't know anything was particularly going to happen. There are all these incidents in the film where the audience is continually thrown off guard. When we came to this event of the Rolls-Royce blowing up, we were determined to find a way that the audience didn't expect it to blow up. And what normally happens is you see a man get into a car, you change the angle, and the car goes up. We wanted to see if we could start the explosion with a man actually in the car. So what we did was the actor, he's in the church, he's watching Mum go down on her knees in front of the priest. And he's thinking, well, she's going to come out any minute now, so I better get the rolls ready.
I am not worthy to receive you.
So he goes out of the church. But it's not going to be the actor that gets in the car because it's a stunt. It's a difficult thing to do. So now you have to get a stuntman. We cut to his feet, so you don't see his face. Tracked with him as he went down to the Rolls-Royce, took the hinges off the boot lid and put a couple of mortars and a petroleum bomb. He opens the door, and as he slams it, the boot blows out. We cut, and a dummy is put in place. Then we put 4 other cameras round, and we blow the whole thing up. And then we just join the two together, and it looks like the whole thing goes up in one. It's a surprise to the audience because they don't think anything particularly is going to happen. And boom, up it goes.
Yeah?
I wanted to make Harold Shand three-dimensional. This character could be tender and loving 1 minute, then the next minute, a sort of monster.
Diabolical liberty.
And Bob was the ideal actor.
What is it?
To give me that.
He's dead.
Eh?
Eric, he's dead. A car bomb.
You see, the great thing about Bob was he hadn't film acted much before.
It's outrageous.
He had that animalism,
You don't go crucifying people outside a church, not on Good Friday.
which was not made soft by technique.
I want everybody in the corporation working on this fast.
He was acting from the guts. He was acting by instinct.
Right, I want everybody working. Jeff, you get on the blower. Razors, you round them all up and you get them moving fast.
He's got wonderfully sort of rough edges to him. Of course, I've never seen that rage in Bob. He plays it beautifully.
I'll have his carcass dripping blood by midnight.
But that's because he's a very good actor. He's got immense energy and courage and feeling.
More bad news. Colin. Dead.
I have to say Bob was fantastic. He was perfect for that part. And he was very dedicated to what he wanted to do with the part.
And I remember at one point in the middle of it, Bob turning to me and saying, look, this really is the best gangster film ever.
Oh, it was wonderful. And it had authenticity. It was great.
Shoot him. Let's put some muck on the ceiling. Please, what do you want? Come on downstairs.
In the script, the characters were really authentic. I think it sort of changed the genre of English crime films.
Put some deodorant on. I'm heavily into personal protection.
People said, at last, England had made a gangster film that was about gangsters.
I have it from a very reliable source. Do you know what's what?
Am I supposed to know something?
People thought about me
Razors?
in a different way after that film.
Cut him.
I remember meeting a gangster, and he said, Bob, he said, I'm glad to see one of our own doing well.
I still can't hear anything.
I said, one of your own? I've never tortured anybody in my life.
I don't fucking know!
But I knew an awful lot of people in the underworld, because I was brought up there. Between North London and the East End. Well, it was a strange area. There was a lot of pubs and clubs and dance halls, and it used to attract all the gangsters. I was never a gangster or anything, or a criminal, but coming from that world, you know, and knowing all those sorts of people, and being used to that sort of thing, and knowing how they react, was pretty helpful, really.
You know? Walk to the car, Billy, or I'll blow your spine off.
And so, I suppose I was pretty authentic.
We all got paid peanuts for the film, but it didn't really matter. Morale was terrific.
Yeah, I was very much involved with it. I loved it. I used to go in every day just to sort of hang out and see what was going on. And Frenzy, he's terrific.
John is very quick. He's known in the business as Frenzy McKenzie.
But it's not a question of being quick, it's a question of being prepared. And the great thing about John was he knows what he wants from the scene. There's no, oh, what should we do here and where do we put... he has very fixed ideas.
But he's also very free with it, you know. He can shoot from the hip, he can improvise. He has the confidence to do that. And that's a really wonderful thing to have in a director. We shot it all around London, which is great for me, you know. I'm a Londoner, I was born in London. It's my city. And as much as it's about this gangster story, I think it's very much about London and Londoners.
And one of the other problems working on location is that you can't always find exactly what you want, building-wise, and you have to create that.
We built a pub in Wapping, the one that was blown up, and it was fantastic, very, very believable.
It was done up like a real pub. They did the whole thing with the bar and the chairs and everything, because we had to walk through it.
It was so beautifully built that people literally kept going up to the door, going, "Are you open?" "Oh,
no, this is not a pub. Fuck off. You know what I mean? Give me a drink. And they had it all wired to blow up. And eventually they said, if you don't get out of here, we're going to blow this pub up. If you don't go, you're dead, all right? And that was the only reason we got them out.
But anyway, we wanted a pub at the end of a road so that as the car drove up, suddenly this thing explodes. And you saw the explosion through the windshield of the car.
You never saw it signalled, so you didn't know that it was coming. You're a bit sort of shocked.
Let me up! Charlie!
Everything's being blown apart. They genuinely didn't know what was happening.
Jesus. We've been 5 minutes earlier.
Bob then learned what's going on.
What did these comedians look like?
I don't know, H. I've never seen them before. They just look like any other mix, heavy mix.
Mix?
Yeah, you know, Irish.
It's the IRA. As far as he's concerned, they're Irish gangsters.
Check out all the mix in the heavy mob who are working on my manor.
But gangsters, nevertheless.
It's just villains trying to frighten their way into a few quid.
And you're with him, because in fact you've been rooting for him.
If that Bob's Irish, it's a different game. Now, those boyos don't know the rules.
Names and addresses of the mix, right?
But you sort of like wonder, is it a bit naive of him? I thought that the Paddy Factor was a great title.
And I said, a Paddy Factor? I said, it's ridiculous.
And I thought it was a good, snappy title.
But it gives it away, you know. I want to build up a mystery in the film. So we had lots of discussion about that.
Like all good directors, I mean, he will fight for what he wants and generally win. I mean, halfway through the film, he said, well, let's call it Long Good Friday as a sort of working title. And the Long Good Friday, it remained after that.
2 or 3 mix have been very busy, covering a lot of ground here since yesterday.
We had a lot of guys from the East End in the film.
And not one of you lot has turned up at a thing.
For them to know that a film was being made about their world.
Someone, somewhere, knows.
They loved it, absolutely loved it.
And we're going to find him.
What is true about that East End world is it's always been very, very witty.
All remember the licence is in the post.
Well, I'll only use it to get the pigeons off the caravan roof, don't I?
And there's some brilliant brains that work in that world.
Right. Arm up and get going.
If they'd had a proper education, they would be heads of state.
And lads, try and be discreet, eh?
But they put all their brilliance into criminal activities.
The people hanging upside down in an abattoir was Bob's idea.
Everybody was hanging upside down. They were bringing them in. And Mike was the cameraman. Suddenly Mike says, hang me upside down. So we stuck him up on a hook. And he came in with the camera, so you got their point of view, what it was like. Holding onto a camera, hanging upside down. It would have killed me. Yeah, because the camera's heavy.
The most difficult thing with that was getting the actors to hang upside down. It's very uncomfortable because, first of all, the blood rushes to their head and they can faint.
One of my closest friends, he's lying out there in the freezer. And believe me, all of you, nobody goes home until I find out who done it.
What we had was a group of other people who would come in at the end of each take and come under their bodies and bring them level.
You know, between, right, we ready? OK, gonna let you down again. Bang, and we started the scene again.
Harold, believe me, look, if I knew, I'd say.
You lying bastard.
The light in that scene was basically available light because in a cold store that's minus 15 degrees, it's difficult to use any other form of light.
You bastard!
So I used all the fluorescents in the roof. And it had a slightly greeny blue look. That was a happy accident. That, for me, is a very successful scene.
Dave King I'd known forever.
Parky! About time!
He was in Pennies from Heaven.
You've got to drop it, Harold. I've had the bomb checked.
It's the same sort of device the IRA use.
But, you know, he was an old mate, and I had to whack him.
This is a special branch now, Harold. I'm turning it over to them.
I had to slap him round the face. I remember we couldn't get it right. John, he said,
I think we're going to have to do it again.
But he was all right. He said, no, just do it, Bob, just do it. But he didn't mind.
Remember who pays your wages, Parky?
He was great.
Victoria, unless you tell us what Harold's bad problems are, Tony and me, we're going to leave the table. We're going to check out of the Savoy, grab the first plane home. There will be no deal.
I'm not a method actress remotely. I do the minimal of research. I'm more concerned with the script.
Yes.
And does the character live on the page? If it doesn't live on the page, it's not going to live on the screen.
Well,
those are the issues that I concern myself with.
A car was blown up. Then a bomb was found at the Mayfair casino. It hadn't detonated. One of our men was found dead in a swimming pool.
I'll come to the set with ideas about scenes that I feel would help the story.
I'll give you till tomorrow. But just one more foul up, and we're on our way back home.
That goes without saying.
It's not always to do with putting scenes in. Sometimes I feel a scene is unnecessary and I don't really understand where it's going, and it's better to lose it.
There's a scene in the lift between Helen and the character Jeff. And Jeff says,
I want to lick every inch of you.
and there was a lot of dialogue. She turned round to us and said, I don't need the words, I can act this. And that's what she did. That scene is virtually dialogue-free. And it worked, simply.
Saved by the bell. Good night.
It was infinitely better. She was very instinctive about that.
Sometimes we'd kind of improvise a bit. Bob was fantastically supportive. But I think it was a bit of a pain for John. He had so many other things to worry about. And really, you don't want some actress saying, and what about my role? It's not good enough. But I think he understood that it was making it a stronger movie.
The scene in Harold Shan's flat, that was originally going to be a love scene. And he came over and they rolled about and had it off. And Helen said, I don't like doing this. And she was totally right. And I always thought, oh, I really feel this is a pity. Because I liked the tension of what was going on. And this killed it. And so we sat down and we worked out that they have an argument.
You did what?
I told them everything, Harold.
And they keep the argument going.
Victoria, I've been to incredible lengths all day to keep it incognito. And now you, over a sherry, calmly tell the whole story.
And she's angry with him and all of that.
I'm going to bed. Good night.
Boy, come here, I'm talking to you.
Don't treat me like one of your thugs.
Harold just gets so enraged. And then he sat down.
What's happening to me?
And then she breaks down and starts crying. So the scene became a tender, loving scene where he held her in his arms and tried to calm her fears.
I'm so scared, Harold. I don't want to die.
And then you see, it was a relationship that went beyond just grabbing what you can get, and that there was a deep respect and a deep love between them. And that happened on the set.
How'd you stay so cool?
I'm on the winning side.
I'd seen Derek Thompson in some television thing, and I thought that guy's got fantastic screen presence, you know. Some people can burn the celluloid, and some people just don't have that.
Derek was so wonderful in the film.
Oh, Christ, am I pleased to see you.
You never saw it coming with Derek. You never saw it coming that he was the snake in the grass, he was the Judas.
You can't even see that I'm not a real bastard. He is.
Because he played the innocence of the character.
Aren't you? I'll get you a cab home, counsellor.
Derek played that beautifully.
You know, last night in the restaurant, Harris, he said that I got it all wrong, that Jeff was the real bastard. Why should he say that?
Harold discovers that Jeff is somehow involved in this, but he doesn't know how or why. He's called Jeff to come and meet him at the boat so he can try and force him to reveal himself. We were discussing how to do this, and John and I came up with this idea that we followed him in one continuous shot up the gangplank from outside to inside. Well, that's the one probably major handheld scene. I used a small lightweight camera, and the biggest problem I had actually was illuminating the scene because it has to be normal light level. And all the lights have to be out of the way so you couldn't actually see them. I was operating the aperture of the camera myself because no one could stand near me because I was going through these tight doorways and going up these stairs. So I couldn't have an assistant do any of that. So I had all my fingers around the front. So I had to adjust the focus of the camera and the aperture of the camera constantly while he's moving through the boat. Then up on the deck, and you have to see the outside through the window. The light levels have to be quite high in the cabin. And it was that technical stuff that became the most difficult part of that shot, which of course is completely invisible on the screen. Finally, he looks out and then suddenly sees Jeff arriving. You get this sense that impending disaster is going to happen.
In the original script, Jeff goes on the run, jumps in his car, drives away, and there's a car chase. And I said, no, we can't have that. Can't have that. They had been a dime a dozen in those days. And I wanted this highly emotional, charged, dramatic confrontation between the two characters. It was, for me, the most important scene in the picture. I wanted all the tension in the film leading up to this moment. I wanted this feeling of there's something going to happen here and it's not going to be nice.
It's hot in here. Shall we go on deck?
Bob's drinking a lot in this scene and moving around.
You what? He's gonna call you Dad.
And getting more and more intense. I wanted Bob just to be honing in.
Quite frankly, I'm a bit flabbergasted you forgot to mention this carry-on in Belfast while I've been away.
And the build of fear in Jeff.
Oh, that.
Yeah, that.
Like a weasel and a rabbit.
It's a long story. I know, I should have told you, but...
Well, tell me now.
Eventually, he's got to have to admit the whole business about being bombed by the IRA was his fault because he'd done a deal with the IRA.
So you got my Colin to deliver for Harris money to Belfast?
Yeah.
That revelation was the crux of the picture, really.
And 3 of their top men were wiped out. The night Colin delivered.
Because there you learn the plot. You learn what it's all been about.
So they put 2 and 2 together and come up with the answer, haven't they? As Colin's my man, it's down to me. I'm the one that's grasped them up, haven't I? This is all revenge.
Yeah.
Bob could more or less go within reason anywhere he liked on that set.
Revenge. It's me that's gonna take revenge. I'll crush them like beetles.
Never.
That's where I gave him his head, and we took a slightly wider lens and let him move around. And we just followed him with the camera.
You can't wipe them out. Work with them.
It's my manor!
That was a wonderful, fresh way to get a great performance out of someone.
You put the finger on me, didn't you?
Now look,
you are straight. Fucking Judas.
Didn't do nothing.
I think in the script he had a gun or something. But I didn't want Harold to brutally kill him in cold blood.
Don't lie to me, boy. I can smell your lies.
I didn't want to lose totally sympathy with him.
Why, Jeff? Why?
He threatened to kill me. I was scared.
And eventually I came across the idea of the whiskey bottle. I said, well, look, let's use the bottle.
Jesus Christ. British Army's been diving about with shit flying at them from all angles for the last 10 years, and you're not impressed?
Shut up!
Again, it had to be a long, slow burn.
They could take over here any time they want. Just shut up.
And let the whole emotion build.
To them, you're nothing. Nothing.
And then he smashes the bottle. Like you would do in a pub fight. He just gets so enraged and hits him with it. And it happens to hit the jugular vein. And that's the end of Jeff. The relationship between these two men was very strong. He was like a son to him. And the Harold Shand character did have all these strong emotions. I wanted him to love this guy. And yet he just gets so enraged that he kills him by accident. Certainly unintentionally. And that leads into another very dramatic scene. That was, again, one of those scenes where I didn't want to interrupt the action by always cutting, because it was going to have to build in tension.
So what we devised, or what I devised with him, was to start low on a camera crane. As Bob appears, we swoop up and look straight down on him. As he comes down, and then we come down, I climbed off the crane. And this time, the wobble, the handheld factor, added to the emotion of the scene.
It was Harris.
Because it mirrored the emotional turmoil that was actually happening in Harold's head.
I'm gonna kill him.
And then I followed them in one continuous shot.
And she gets pulled along the ground and everything. And it's improvised. It just all happened like that. Right up to the time she's smacking him. I think it was done in one take.
Well, you've got Harris, right? You've got him. Now you use him. You use him to stop this bloody havoc, right?
I'm rather proud of that scene. Phil was terrific. And Bob and Helen were magnificent in doing it. They were great. They were a totally different type of actor. Helen was much more a technique actor. I mean, she trod the stage. And Bob was an instinctive actor. He was emotional. But somehow they hit off each other, I thought, extremely well. They gave each other a lot. Music is crucial, and sometimes you win and sometimes you don't, because you can get a great composer and never quite get the music you want. But in this case, I think we won with Francis Bankman. I took a chance because it hadn't done film music before. But I just thought he came out with this stuff that you'll always remember. A lot of tunes you could hold in your head in a way. He helped to contribute to make the film, I think, memorable. The central idea of the film was that there was a capitalist thug fighting politically oriented, politically committed terrorists, namely the IRA in this instance. These sort of themes, you know, the whole idea that one man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter, were of great interest to me. And it still interests me today, actually.
You can't deal with these people. For Christ's sake, they're not interested in money. They're political, they're fanatics.
We're now into the war on terrorism. It's the bane of the world. The Harold Shands, they're up against something, they're up against an idea, which is very difficult to fight.
This is Mr. Shand. He's brought the money.
Harold Shand thought he could fight it. But you can't fight it like that. You do it in a different way.
The grades. People were saying, you can't do films about this. That was about IRA terrorism, with the IRA being sympathetic. But I never thought of it as propaganda for the IRA. I mean, I think the IRA and Harold Shand are more or less on the same level.
All the disasters, all the death, and terrible things were going on.
You wait here, I'll go and get him, all right? I won't be a minute.
But at the same time, there's quite a lot of laughs in this film. For example, the scene where Harold goes to see Charlie.
Where's Charlie?
And finds out he's going back to America.
Everything's all right.
I wanted humour.
What, you leaving?
Yeah.
You two can't wait to get out of here, can you?
I always react like that to bombs blowing up, mass murders. It's a hang-up of mine.
And that's what I loved about the way Bob could play it.
It's coming to something when the mafia can't handle a little problem, isn't it?
Which was slightly ironic, but at the same time not sending him up.
I'm glad I found out in time just what a partnership with a pair of wankers like you would have been.
Now look.
Shut up.
And then Bob goes into his patriotic speech.
Us British, we used to have a bit more vitality, imagination, touch of the Dunkirk spirit, know what I mean?
And you can say, God, how far will this man go?
What I'm looking for is someone who can contribute to what England has given to the world. Culture, sophistication, genius. A little bit more than an hot dog, know what I mean?
He's got to say it with passion and conviction.
Look at you, the mafia. I've shit them.
But at the same time, you know, you can laugh. I always find endings the most difficult thing to do. But I remember saying to Barry Hanson, when we were doing rewrites, the one thing I know is how to end this film.
He said, I'm going to sit you in the back of the car. He said, and I'm going to put a camera on your face.
I'll make that go on for minutes, if I can.
I said, blimey, they'll be going out in droves. Yeah, they're going to buy it. He said, no. I said, you do it.
And it was to start outside the Savoy. Bob gets in the car.
Here, hold up, where's Victoria?
And sees Helen taken away.
Bob Hoskins gets whisked away. And then I show up in the front seat, popping up with the gun.
Pierce Brosnan, I never met him. He actually takes me off and kills me, but I never met him.
Welcome to the world of film. I showed up to shoot the sequence. Bob Hoskins wasn't there. Phil Meheux was in the back with the camera and lights. John McKenzie driving, and me giving my best smile of malevolence. But I was completely ignorant. I didn't realize that it was going to be such a cinematic moment.
And when they did my bit, John actually taught me that a camera can see you think.
He said, I don't want you to act, I just want you to think.
He had to have a whole series of thoughts going through his head logically and quite clearly delineated so the audience would get it.
I said, you've got to be joking.
But you can't ask an actor just to do that without anything, without giving him anything. So I had to drive the car and direct. I say, you're sitting there absolutely furious. You think, how am I going to get out of this? I'm going to kill these bastards. How am I going to do it? And I was doing that, giving the dialogue so Bob would react to this. And then I would say, now you think, oh, God, there must be a way out of this. And then gradually we go through the whole sequence where I then saying to him, now you're going to give it. You've got to surrender. And in a way, you sort of admire them. You think, my God, these guys are better than me. And I'm defeated.
None of us thought it was going to work, but it did. And I realised then the camera can actually read your mind. If you're thinking the thoughts that the character would be thinking, whatever you're doing, it's right. It was extraordinary.
That shot went on and on and on. It was one close-up of Bob's face. And that's how we got it. As I said, it was a very happy film to make. All the disasters happened afterwards. Lou Grade and his people didn't like it at all. They thought it was dangerous. They thought it was promoting the IRA.
That was a kind of a sticking point for ITC.
They felt their theatres might be bombed or something, I don't know.
And then I was informed that they were going to put it out on television.
And it was all edited and cut from 111 minutes to 83 minutes. All done without my knowledge until with horror, eventually we found out.
And then they went ahead and revoiced Bob with an actor whose hometown was Wolverhampton.
The revoicing of Bob was the big mistake they made.
They said, come in and see it, Bob. You know what I mean? You'll love it. We've done it really well. And I saw 10 minutes of it and said, you're nicked. My contract says you cannot dub me without my permission. And I'm slapping an injunction on this. You are nicked.
Bob then had to say he would go to court because this was going to destroy his career. Then I went to see Jack Gill, who was sort of the managing director of the great organisation, and I said, look, this business about the court case, it's going to be awful for you guys because we've got all the knights, the sirs of the trade, going to come and say in the court that the worst thing you can do to a leading actor is to deprive him of his voice. And he went pale, because also they were into all this sort of snobby sort of stuff. And I said, it'll be a big case, and you'll look rather bad. And the simple way out of this whole thing is if you sell the film to us.
Eventually they said, all right, you can buy the film. I thought, yeah, well, yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, thanks. And then I met Eric Idle at a party. And yeah, I said, you must have made a fortune out of the life of Brian. Do you want to buy a movie? And he said, well, let's have a look at it. So I set up a showing and they bought it. And from then on, it was Handmade. And that's how it went out.
The Long Good Friday.
Long Good Friday was distributed here and was really successful, and then went to the States. It was slightly uncomfortable for American audiences because there's a lot of English Cockney slang.
I like a sing song, but who's your fancy for a lullaby?
Well, choppers and a boob.
So actually, we put a glossary of terms. On the American version, these are the vital words you got to just remember if you can. But it got very well received in America, this film. It got great reviews.
The Long Good Friday, a gangster film in the classic old Hollywood mode of sharp craftsmanship. Bob Hoskins, a terrific actor, is a Cockney Edward G. Robinson.
It was just tremendous from that point of view.
I have to say, when I saw the finished film, I was blown away by what John had done. It was a great couple of hours in the cinema.
I'm very happy to have been a part of it. And I'm surprised and delighted that it goes on and on. Some critics made a list of the 100 best British films. The Long Good Friday was listed 15.
It's justified in terms of its status.
Fucking hell!
I was certainly proud of it. But, you never think that you're going to make something that's regarded so long afterwards as that thing.
For me, as an actor of 25 years of age, it was brilliant. But I'm glad I made something with my career. Otherwise, you wouldn't be talking to me. I'd just still be the guy at the end of the movie.
I think The Long Good Friday is one of those rare movies that has this amazing inner energy. And it's because of that inner energy that it will always be watchable.
I would have thought it would have been really dated by now. But everywhere I go now, people come up and start saying they loved it. And it's great that they say that. Oh, jolly good.
I have to admit, it was about the happiest film I can remember. And that isn't always a good augury. Sometimes you do films like that and you think, what a wonderful experience it's been, and the thing bombs, So you can't be sure you've got something of real quality. But everything on the film was great. Everyone put their heart and soul into it and loved it. It was important for us at that time, important for all our careers. So it was memorable. I think of it warmly.